I see so many intelligent people around me who are broke, and I see so many stupid people here in Dubai who are rich.
Meet Samuel Aziz, the guy rich people call when they want to pay less tax and keep their money bulletproof. If you're making serious money and don't know what to do with it, he's your guy.
You have learned a lot since being in Dubai.
You shouldn't move to Dubai just because of taxes. It's because of the person you become. This is a city here where nobody is hating. Everybody wants you to succeed.
What advice do you typically tend to give those people when they book a call with you?
90% of all e-commerce influencers that you watch are broke. A real entrepreneur needs to have a long-term vision, a long-term plan, and that's why you need to plan always ahead.
What are some of the problems that you are solving for people on a regular basis?
You need to have an unfair advantage in business. If you pay a lot of taxes and your competition doesn't pay a lot of taxes, they have 20% more money than you. They will simply outwork you just with this one thing.
Welcome back to another episode of the TheoClarkePodcast, where I interview e-commerce entrepreneurs. Today's podcast is sponsored by Commercive Fulfilment, and I have the pleasure of speaking with Samuel Aziz. Samuel Aziz, how are you, brother?
Alhamdulillah, I'm great. And you?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm very well. And thank you for joining me on the podcast today. I'm really excited to talk to you. It's interesting. I've had a lot of e-commerce dropshippers, brands and agency owners, but not many people that have quite your experience. So your background is Ecom initially, and then you actually transitioned, well, you're still involved in Ecom as I understand it, but also into the wealth consultancy side, which I think is really interesting because it's something that all e-commerce business owners need to face at a certain point, business structures, taxes, doing things or minimizing tax as much as possible, but legally. And I think no better to talk to than yourself. So thank you for joining me today. And maybe you could start by just explaining a little bit about what your company, Wealth Consulting is, what you do and how you help e-commerce business owners. And I know you don't just help e-com owners, but in general, if we can relate it back to Ecom, how do you best serve e-commerce business owners?
Yeah, it's good. So to make it short, we just fix all problems in e-commerce, to make it short. Which issues do most people have? They need to pay too much taxes, they have accounting, payment processing doesn't work, banking doesn't work, money is on hold somewhere, all these issues, and we solve it basically, to make it short. So everything related to banking, residency, investments, payment processing. And why do we solve it? Because I was facing these issues all the time in my history. So I grew up in Germany. I started with business when I was 16, 17 years old. And originally I started with online marketing. So I was selling fitness coachings online in the background of other famous bodybuilders, influencers. I was always in the background. I didn't really care about any social media fame. Now it's necessary to some degree. But we were always in the background, and that's how we developed this transition to e-commerce, because we already had this fitness influencers. So it was easy to just get started in this sphere. And once you build a business, right, every business is almost structured the same, right? You have like marketing, you have a website, you have fulfillment, then you need banking, payment processing. And during the years when I was scaling the companies around the world, I had to set up companies, for example, right? In the US, in Europe, in Asia. I always wanted to leave Europe. So I was traveling around the world, trying to find the best place. And during this 8-year journey, I faced many issues. Starting, I'm always telling the story. I was in Germany the first two, 3, almost 4 years, like every entrepreneur journey, just pure hustle, struggle, failing, loneliness. And then I made it somehow when I was 21 years old. I really made good money. Which means like 600, 700K profit, not some revenue with zero profit. Yeah. It was pure profit that we had. And I thought I made it. And then all of a sudden came this huge tax bill in Germany. I didn't know anything about this. I didn't care, honestly. Young entrepreneur. I just wanted to make money. I didn't do any accounting, nothing. And then I had these issues, and it was huge for me at this time. And then I thought, okay, I need to figure out a way how to have a better structure in the future. And then I had all these tax advisors telling me, you need to do this. And I thought, I don't need to do anything, Why should I pay all these taxes to this government? Then I was researching more what happens with these taxes. And then I thought, okay, where I live, at this time I lived in Köln in Germany. In front of my apartment were all these junkies lying there, like, attacking you. The street was completely broken. the school that I had in front there was like nothing. Then they had always this like Christopher Street gay parade in front of me. And mostly just this junkies in front of me. So I realized, okay, there's not much happening with this taxes anyways. And then I realized, and I looked at wars in this world, who's actually funding these wars. It's mostly the taxpayers. And I thought, okay, I don't want to be in the system. Which alternative do I have? So this was the tax part. Once I solved this, then later you fix other issues. And over all these years, I figured out I didn't find one good tax advisor. I didn't find one good company here in the UAE who's helping you to incorporate something properly. I didn't find somebody who can properly help me to get good banking. All these issues, I never found somebody. And over 7 years, I decided with my business partner, hey, I will just do this by ourselves, basically. And that's how we started. We just fixed this for our companies. Then, of course, if you're successful, you already have a good network of people who also ask you, hey, can you also fix this for me? I fixed it for business partners. And so step by step, this evolved into a business. And only last year, we started to really brand it as a business, to start our branding. And yeah, since then, we are the best, the only one on the market.
I like it. I like the confidence. So you're here in Dubai. You've been here for about 3 years now. And the whole time you've been operating wealth consulting, right? And how have things kind of transitioned since you've been there? Because you've just explained your journey from Germany to Dubai. And then how have things progressed? What are some of the problems that you are solving for people on a regular basis? I know you mentioned business setup. Is that primarily here in Dubai, or do you help everywhere? Because I know you mentioned something, hopefully I'm going to get this right, but you said about taxes. Sometimes setting up just in one country isn't a viable option and you need to be amongst many different countries. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. So originally I had my e-commerce businesses in Europe and in the US. And at this time, it was mostly in Europe. And I moved to Dubai with this clear vision, okay, 0% taxes, everything will work perfectly. And then I wanted to move here with all these false promises. And they told me, yes, no problem. You will have your company in 1 week and you will not pay taxes. And I asked, hey, can I use it for my e-commerce business in Europe? Of course. Does payment processing work? Yeah, of course. Okay, so I had all this hope, basically. I was waiting here for 3 months. And in 3 months, the company was not ready. So after 3 months, I needed to leave because my visa expired and I had nothing. Then I needed to prepare again. I started with another provider. Again, something didn't work. And then when it worked out, I realized, okay, I can't even use this company for e-commerce. Not even with the right license, but it was even the wrong license. It was buying and selling real estate, which completely didn't fit. So yeah, I learned that you need a proper structure, and there is no country in the world which is perfect in everything. But overall, if you travel through the whole world, if you do business in all these countries, you realize, okay, there are still only a few options which are really great for business. This is US, then you have the UAE, you have Hong Kong, you have Singapore, and that's it basically. There's not much left. Maybe you could find Swiss banking or something, but that's it. And then you look at e-commerce. What most people are using is Hong Kong or US. What's the best place to get residency? 100% UAE. Yes, you can move to Singapore, for example. So now, number one country where millionaires are moving is UAE, and number two is US, number three is Singapore. The thing is, if you move to Singapore, there is not much as a big community. It's hard to integrate, hard to even get residency, hard to sponsor employees. And even then you need to hire 50% people from Singapore, which will not be happy with $1,000 salary. Yeah. So it's hard to get in the system. So number one place to get residency is the UAE, and you will change automatically. You will transform your life and improve if you survive here, because this is the place. And but it's not enough. Why? If you sell somewhere in the US, you need some kind of US structure, a dollar structure. If you sell somewhere in Europe, normally you need some Europe structure. So you can't just have one company somewhere and just sell all over the world and that's it. So it all needs to work perfect in harmony. And it doesn't bring you anything to have a low tax company, but payment processing doesn't work, banking doesn't work, or the reputation is bad and you lose all of your clients, you lose all your business. It also doesn't make sense. And that's why we look at the holistic structure. So where do you want to live? Where are your clients? Where is your fulfillment? What are your future plans? Where do you want to invest in the future? And only then it makes sense to even build a proper structure.
I really appreciate the overview there, and very well explained as well. So let's assume that someone does choose to buy, like I and you have. Past that point, what's the best next step then? Imagine they're already selling. Maybe they're already selling in the US, but from your perspective, maybe they don't have the most efficient structure. Maybe they're not leveraging an LLC. Maybe they're still using bank accounts from their home in Germany. How would you best solve that problem, or why would you recommend that they actually start to integrate things in different locations to be more efficient and more effective?
So it's hard to say because it depends on the person, depends on the business of the person. So even if we're talking about e-commerce, everybody has a different product, right? Everybody sells to different countries. So it's hard to just say this is the perfect structure for everybody. I can just only say what 70% of our clients are doing, and this is they have their residency here in the UAE, they have their personal banking here, they have their personal assets mostly here in the UAE, they spend most of their time here, and then in their e-commerce structure usually they have a US LLC, 90% of all people, because it's always a no-brainer. If you're non-US citizen, non-US resident, don't have too much substance, it's zero tax, no accounting, and you have best access to banking payment processing. And with this US LLC, it's still easy to even sell to Europe, for example, and that's why most people are choosing it. The only issues are usually local banking, which we fix, or payment processing, which we fix, or people just don't have access to this US system, and that's what we fix also. And then sometimes a Hong Kong structure also makes sense. Also, if people are still selling in Europe and they need to reduce VAT. So it depends on the structure. But this is always the no-brainer setup. UAE company, UAE residency, UAE personal banking, and a US LLC with US banking and payment processing. And if you have at least a structure, it's very easy to pay a small amount of taxes and to do business all over the world.
Running an e-commerce business comes with many different challenges, especially when it comes to order fulfillment. Late deliveries, high shipping costs, and customer complaints can negatively impact your business, potentially leading to payment processing holds that will eat into your profit margins. That's why I'm excited to introduce you to Commercive, our sponsor today. They handle everything from manufacturing to storage and shipping with no hidden fees. And their dedicated WhatsApp support team are on hand to make sure you're always taken care of. Commercive offers 5 to 10 day shipping worldwide from China, with same-day processing and USA warehousing available for brands at competitive rates. Having served over 3,000 e-commerce sellers, Commercive has earned a reputation for reliable fulfillment. It's super easy to get set up. Just click the link in the video description and visit commercive.co to get a free quote. Is there a certain state in the US that you'd recommend, or does it not matter? Because I hear Delaware gets mentioned a lot, maybe because it's for indemnity or something like that, but maybe you know more about this, or I would assume.
Yes. I mean, when it comes to US, if you research information, you see mostly informations from US-based influencers, and they live in a completely different system than non-US citizens, non-US residents. So everything that they explain you doesn't work for you as a non-US citizen, because US LLCs are normally tied to a US person living there. It's completely different rules. And for them, Delaware is good. For most non-US residents, Wyoming is better. Why? It's just how the system, how the law is created. So for example, if you put in YouTube anonymous bank account, anonymous company, they come all the shady videos, and you set up something somewhere in a third world country, but you don't even need to do it. The US is actually the biggest tax haven in the world and offers you the structures. You have no other choice than having an anonymous company in Wyoming. Why? To set up a company in Wyoming, you need a US registered agent who's the public owner basically in the public register. So it's basically like your director, your strawman, but officially it's a must. But in the back end, you are the official owner. So Wyoming has a lot of advantages, and it works perfectly. And then we set up most bank accounts in Miami with Chase, JP Morgan. And then you have basically an anonymous company set up, because if you open a corporate bank account, and by the way, US corporate bank accounts don't have any data exchange. So people talking about CRS and data exchange all over the world, US corporate bank accounts don't have any data exchange. So every country around the world needs to send all data, all information to the US, but the US doesn't have to do it because they still rule the world, own the world. And in this combination, you're perfect to go.
Amazing. So would that mean that you have indemnity? So you have the LLC there, you have corporate banking, and you're saying, from if I'm understanding what you said correctly, you have almost like a referral, like a shareholder or an agent that helps you open that account. Are they then involved in the business at all, or is that just when opening?
No, that's why the system is even better, because the registered agent, and there are more than 50,000 registered agents from the state. So they're chosen from the state, and they don't have any power over the company. They are only in the public register, but they can't open a bank account. They can't do any changes in the company, nothing. They have no power over the company. You have an operating agreement which says who's the real owner shareholder, and only the person in the operating agreement can open the bank account. So it's 100% safe. And that's also why it's much better compared to other solutions. Let's say Hong Kong is great, but many clients come to us and say, hey, I was choosing a nominee director in Hong Kong and this nominee director took my money, because they have power over the company. In the US, it's not the case. And that's why we always need to take the best of every world, and when it just comes to incorporation, the rule of law, US is still absolutely great.
What about sales tax in the US? So if we're running with this example, you're living in the UAE personally, your business is set up in the US as an LLC, you have corporate banking, perhaps you're selling in the US as well. Can you explain sales tax?
Yes. So first, guys, this here is no tax advice at all, and you should also just do everything legally and always talk to a consultant first before you make any decisions. So I can't explain that too much. Overall, what we do in the US, like I just said, it's very easy to just not get into the tax system. So it's just, let's say, if you set up a company in Hong Kong, you have a tax exemption. So if you're not living in Hong Kong, you don't have your clients in Hong Kong, you don't have your employees in Hong Kong, you just apply for the tax exemption, but you need to make accounting, auditing, and then Hong Kong says every year, okay, you are tax exempted. In the US, it's more like the opposite route. It's like you need to work on becoming a tax resident and apply for it, basically. And it's very easy. There are different, for example, for you as a person, there's a substantial presence test. For your business, there are certain measurements, and then tax advisors can just define, hey, are you tax resident or not? Do you have to pay taxes or not? So it really depends on the case. So there are certain rules. Like I always say, if you spend more than 120 days in the US, okay, you as a person are tax resident. You have a physical office there with employees there, then you will probably become a tax resident. You sell 100% to the US, probably yes, but very easy to not become tax resident. For every, let's say, coaching consulting business, it's anyways 100% because you just have clients from all over the world. You have nothing to do with the US system, basically. Very easy. For e-commerce, if you're only selling or almost only selling to the US, just depends on the business, just depends on the product, but very easy to navigate everything.
Okay. Easy for you because I feel like you understand it and you know it. But for someone that maybe doesn't know, are there resources online that you could reference to learn more about sales taxes by state? Because as I understand it, it varies, right? Or not so much?
No, I don't think there are any good resources. The same like opening bank accounts in the US. I don't see good resources there. I don't see any good explanations for non-US residents about US LLCs, so I don't think so. At the end of the day, you shouldn't waste time with it, If you want to, I don't know any client who makes really good money, big money, and spends his whole day researching something and, solving taxes, solving this. They just pay experts and that's it. They don't even know like much about this, honestly. Like the richest clients of us don't know anything about this. They just say, the tax advisor said this. Oh, okay. But important to have the right advisors, not your local village European advisor who's telling you need to pay 50% taxes. So it's important to have experts on board anyways. If you have a big business, you don't need to be the smartest person in the room, the hardest worker in the room. You need a big circle, good employees, good advisors to actually run a big corporation.
And is it similar with VAT if you're selling in like European countries?
So in Europe, yeah, it's basically the same. So we have a lot of clients and businesses, they don't need to pay VAT because still there are a lot of exemptions and depends on the structure the same. Then you have other options. Let's say you're shipping from China, you have a service company outside of Europe. So now you can use transfer pricing to reduce the VAT at least from, for example, 19% to 9%. So there are many options, and it's also something that we solve every day.
Interesting. So you got solutions for everything: sales tax, VAT.
Yeah, I mean, we only play by the rules, but you need to know the rules, and then you need to see how to use the system. Do you think Amazon just pays all taxes? It's not possible, Amazon is not paying much taxes. And that's why they are now everywhere around the world. Why? Because otherwise you just lose against your competition, because you need to have an unfair advantage in business. That's the number one thing. Like I explained to you earlier, when I started in e-commerce, we already came from the coaching business. We already had affiliates, we had influencers, we had bodybuilders. Easy to have an entry, unfair advantage. So, and now if you pay a lot of taxes and your competition doesn't pay a lot of taxes, they have 20% more money than you, and they put this 20% back into marketing, they will simply outwork you just with this one thing. Yeah. So you have no other choice. So you need to choose. Either you do everything right, you have a better margin, less taxes, better system, better payment options, or you just lose.
Yeah. Margins can be very tight before you even take into consideration taxes and corporation tax and all this kind of stuff. So if you can move somewhere where you don't need to pay it and you can reinvest that money back into the growth, or get advice from people like yourself who can then further assist with sales taxes and VAT, game changer, like 100%. So we talked a bit about company structure in the US. You also mentioned Hong Kong as well. You mentioned about getting corporate bank accounts. So how do those bank accounts differ from your typical Wise, Revolut? What are you getting into when you go with Chase or JP Morgan? Why are they better?
Yeah, so there are always levels in this game. So when you're just getting started, it's perfectly fine, I like Vio here in UAE. I like Wise. I like Revolut. I like Mercury, Relay. But all these are fintech banks. These are not real banks. So these are neobanks, which means they are basically just a platform under a real bank, and this real bank is under the central bank. Oh. So you're always under the mercy of some entity above you. That's why everybody just gets emotional once Stripe is blocked, Shopify is blocked, Wise is blocked, Revolut is blocked, and they say these idiots, they just blocked me for nothing. It's not fair, but it's not even their choice, because they are under the mercy of the real bank, and they have certain guidelines. Most people don't know their guidelines. And even if it's some small mistake, they have no other choice than restricting you and asking for KYC and evidence and so on, because the real bank above gives them this, and they need to do it basically. And that's why you need real banks when you make $500,000 or more per month, because most people, they really think $20,000 is a lot when they just use Wise or Revolut. But what do you think what people are doing which make 100 million per month? They are not using Wise. So you need a real bank, or you need to know the owner of Wise. Then it's also working, So we also know the owner of all these companies. But most important, to have a proper bank. And a proper bank is a real bank. They are not under the mercy of another bank, which means, yes, you can send $500,000 in wires, And once you make this money, you have no other option. And your money is safe in this case. A lot of these people have 20 bank accounts. They think they need a backup of a backup of a backup of a backup. You don't need this. And now when you have Chase, JP Morgan, I have 20 businesses on JP Morgan and millions there, and I'm not worried. If I have 100K on Wise, of course I'm worried. I like Wise for some small transactions, but that's it. And this is exactly the same with payment processing. If you look at Stripe, for example, it's just a payment aggregator under a real payment processor, under a real bank. So it's not the end solution. And if you can go higher in this ladder, the better it is for you and the safer it is. And then once you have the setup, you will just never need to worry again anymore, because now I'm with Chase, I have my private banker. Problem solved.
You mentioned 500,000 per month. Is that, in your opinion, the threshold to then approaching these corporate banks and getting an account? Is that the bar to get into these accounts, or how does it work?
So if you look around the world, let's say you want to have priority banking with Chase, you need to put $100,000 to $150,000 on this account. You want to have priority banking in the UAE, 500,000 dirham, which is $150,000. You want to have priority banking in Singapore with UOB DBS. They expect $200,000 to $300,000 bank balance. So this is like the key measurement. And usually people who make less than 500K revenue don't have this money sitting around there. And also for payment processing, to get real proper payment processing, this is the guideline. Yes, you can start with 200K, but usually 500K is where I say, okay, until this point, Revolut, Relay, Mercury work perfectly. If you make more than this, it becomes dangerous.
So when you say private payment processing, is that working with someone like JP Morgan? Is that what you mean? You're going direct to the corporate bank, or is private processing slightly different?
Yeah, so private processing is our company, our brand, basically the private banking of the payment processing world. And what we mean is you have your own private processor, which means you have like a private banker for your payment processing, and we just fix everything for you. And it can be directly with Chase, but it's not a must. It can be even directly with Airwallex, but we know Airwallex directly and you are not in some online chat basically. Or it can be we have all options out there. But most important, imagine you have online banks. So now you have an issue. What can you do? You can only contact an online chat and that's it. Yeah. And you need to wait. Or if you have too much issues, the online chat is not working anymore and you get some email. That's it. If you have private banking, you just call your banker and say, hey, can you send this money for me? And this is the same what we do with private processing. So now you don't have to be in an online chat anymore. You have your private processor. You are in contact with him and you don't need to worry.
So those that maybe aren't at that threshold yet, but are still experiencing problems like maybe payment processing holds, or which I know sometimes PayPal can be notorious for, or even Stripe sometimes. What advice would you give people? Because you said there's maybe some guidelines most people don't know. So if they're not ready yet for payment processing or private payment processing, what can they do?
So in step one, they can just book a call with us at Wealth Consulting and we just take a look at this situation, to be honest. It's like the most straightforward solution. But what we do many times is we just train people basically with our team and tell them just how to do everything right. This can be simple things like, so for example, some people just set up let's say they set up a UK company and sell to US 100%. This is also high risk. Why? Because if you have a company in payment processing in the UK, but you are 100% selling to the US cross-border, it's strange for the bank. It's strange. Why is he not just setting up something in the US, for example? Or people are just sending wires with a wrong description, for example. Or they have a different address and phone number on their website compared to what they were giving to the bank or to Stripe, for example. These are all red flags, you know. Or they scale too fast and Stripe or Shopify payments just didn't know about this. When you scale fast, it's also high risk, you know. So you can do simple things like giving them a business plan, for example, to explain them what you do. You need to have the company structure right first. So it needs to be like a clear plan for everything. You can't just wandering around and thinking, oh, let's say most entrepreneurs are in this survival mode. Just, oh, what can I do today to make more money faster? You know, I need money now. I have invoices to pay, and that's good. But this can't be a real entrepreneur. A real entrepreneur needs to have a long-term vision, a long-term plan. And that's why you need to plan always ahead. Because once you already have banking issues, payment processing issues, tax issues, it's always too late. Because to get out of this, it's really difficult.
So when is the right time then? Because you mentioned 500K per month for payment processing. Is that still the threshold for everything else? Or do you think, no, you should be thinking about your company structure, where you're banking way earlier than that?
I think you need to plan these things already when you get started with a business. Like I said, too many young people, and this is not bad, right? Are in this survival mode. Just something needs to work. And what's the next step? What's the issue that I need to fix today? And that's good, but you need to have a business plan. And that's something that you normally learn in business on day one. You need to have a business plan. But if you ask people, do you have a business plan? Most of them don't have a plan. And most important to plan this ahead in the beginning. And once you face an issue, you anyways need to act immediately. But that's what I always say. Company setup, taxes, banking, payment processing is at least 50% of your business. You know, there were people coming to me and saying, hey, I have this and this issues. Just give me now a company and a bank account with processing and I give you 50% of my revenue. That's how important it can be, especially once you have issues. So just plan it as soon as possible. But probably when you already have these issues or you're paranoid about this, you already know it's time to act. Even if you don't have issues, everybody who makes a lot of money is usually just paranoid and thinks, oh, this money will be on hold. What is with this money? What is when this is happening? And that's why you need to build a good structure just as soon as possible.
For sure. I think you're right. I think a lot of people, when they start a business, especially ecom, typically it's a low barrier to entry. So people are doing a lot of things for the first time, even maybe running the ads or even incorporating their initial business or paying their first VAT bill or sales tax. A lot of it is new. So I think sometimes people overlook that at the start. And I guess maybe rightly so, focus on earning some money first, but then as soon as you've got some momentum, consider thinking about, at the end of this year, when your corporation tax is due, how much have you actually got to pay, or how much do you actually owe in VAT if you reach the threshold, and all of these things. And I'm sure as soon as they make that first payment and see all of that money going to someone else, then they're going to start thinking, okay, now I want to go maybe to Dubai or somewhere else and keep this money for myself or reinvest it back into the business.
Yeah, most people, they just copy some e-commerce business, some dropshipping business. It's not even a business. Yes, I see all these coaches there online with their, I make like so much revenue. Yes, guys, I can today spend $20 million for some new business in ads and make $20 million, But how much profit do I have from this? You need to create a proper plan, a proper long-term plan for a proper business. And to just ship something, make some ads that already 20 other people are doing, it's not a real business. And that's why you need a proper business plan to make millions in profit, because everything else is just not a business. It's you're self-employed, some online hustler, and that's okay if that's your goal. But if you want to build a real business, it's a different mindset. And most of these guys don't have a real business.
So we've talked about business setup, we've spoken about different locations, we've touched on VAT and sales tax, payment processing, when is the right time to obviously think about all these things. There's another thing that came to mind when you were talking about, corporate business setups and banking. At the moment, obviously, we're still doing everything via pounds, dollars, but I hear a lot of talks of central bank digital currencies, and maybe this is hopefully not off topic, because I still think it's relevant, but what impact do you think that might have, or do you think it's going to have any impact on, how money is then being transferred, how money is then being tracked, and people's spending habits, and just monitoring in general from the top?
So I think most people are too concerned with these changes. Because you need to think, what can I do for my business in this year or in the next year, and how is the world currently working? Everything else are speculations, right? Like so many people asking me about BRICS, the changes of BRICS. But how about, why should US be good if BRICS is already developing? And I say, yes, I'm not stupid. I'm seeing this news every day about BRICS, and I hope BRICS will be great. But then go to Russia and set up a company and do business there, It's difficult. The same in China, the same in India. So right now we need to take a look at which system do we currently have which actually works. And right now everything is still more easy in the Western world when it comes to business, honestly. And right now in e-commerce, people are paying in dollar or euro with credit cards. And this should be the only concern right now, how to scale this business. Yes, once you make 10 million in profit, you have so much money, then you can worry about every change from currencies to world order, to BRICS, to crypto, to AI. But if that's not the case, then just don't worry about this. And I see so many intelligent people around me who are broke. And I see so many stupid people here in Dubai who are rich. Why? Because they don't overthink, Honestly, like most people here who are rich, they are not intelligent. That's a fact, but they are focused. They are really focused and hardworking, especially here. And so this is the only thing that people need to do, is to be laser beam focused on one thing and to scale it.
So say they do scale their business and they are sitting on profit. What are some things they can do to protect their wealth? Where would you recommend that they maybe reinvest? I know it's going to be different depending on everyone's tolerance, but if someone did come to you and they said, hey, look, Samuel, I'm sitting on some money here. I've reinvested into my business. It's growing consistently, but I also want to know what I should do with the rest of this cash. Are there some things that come to mind on where you might recommend that they invest? Let's say they were here in Dubai.
Yeah, so there are nowadays two types of categories. The young hustlers who say, I don't want to own anything because they watch some YouTube videos and think that's cool. And they say, I want to keep all in crypto, and that's totally fine. But most people who have wealth just invest in proper assets, honestly. And the number one asset, which is easy to invest, is just real estate. Once you have enough money, I don't see personally any other option, but that's maybe just my tolerance. I'm invested everywhere. And in the first years, the only thing that I was doing is to reinvest, to buy new businesses. And that's great. If you buy in a sphere and you have a lot of businesses that you control, it brings you a lot of money and kept me a lot of freedom. But overall, I think real estate is probably the best option. Why? You get residency in countries. It's hard assets that where nothing can happen. Basically, there's no big up and down. And especially if you have 10 million or more net worth, you should always set up a trust or a foundation and then put some real estate under it. And then once you have this wealth, you know, nothing can happen to you anymore, because everything else that most young people have, crypto money, e-commerce money, it's still like fugazi, you know, it's not even real. Like they say, money is not real, but it becomes real when you stand in front of your big villa, you know, then money is real. Until you reach this point, it's not real. And so I think once you have enough money, just buy some real estate, and then you're at least safe, because now you know, okay, there will be always enough space for my family or for all people. Nobody can take it from me because it's under a trust or under a foundation. And I didn't see any client of us who has $50 million or more and doesn't own real estate. We had some clients who have like $30 million and they're really full in crypto, all in. But that was the limit that I saw so far. Everybody else above it for sure had real estate. And people think you don't have freedom and it will like block your mind and you need to solve some things. It's not the case, because if you do proper investments, it's just fully managed. You have nothing to do with it.
So what would be an example of something that's fully managed? Would it be like a serviced hotel kind of thing, or that kind of route?
Yeah, this is the easiest way, serviced residences. I like serviced residences. Yes, you have a little bit smaller return maybe, but they are just reliable, you know. And you realize this once you make good money and travel around the world, but not brokey style, rich style, and you go to the best hotel chains in the world. Let's say you travel all over the world, only to Four Seasons or Mandarin Oriental or Amman, and you realize that, hey, it doesn't matter if I'm now in Miami or somewhere in Japan or in Thailand or in the Middle East or somewhere in the mountains of Bhutan, the quality of these brands is everywhere the same. They are great everywhere. So these brands are just reliable. And if you invest in these brands, you can just expect quality. It's safe, it's stable. They're always in the best locations. That's the next point. If I traveled to a new place in the past, I just always look where Four Seasons, Mandarin Oriental are located, stayed there, and it's anyways the best location, usually in a city. And when you invest in a brand in an A location, it's just safe, low maintenance. This would be one option, yes.
And any other recommendations?
I mean, for me personally, I like to always invest in A locations. So let's say, talking about Dubai, I like still Palm Jumeirah, Emirates Hills, Jumeirah Bay Island, because it doesn't matter how many buildings they build somewhere in the desert, people still want to go to Palm Jumeirah, Jumeirah Bay Island, or the New Palm. These A locations will be always interesting. And this is probably just the safest bet, you know. So real estate and all investments, it's like business, you know. A lot of people fail, they make some mistakes, but it's not the fault of crypto or the fault of real estate or the fault of this business. It's your fault because you just didn't do the right decision or you trusted the wrong people, and just learn from it, you know, for next time. You still need to do investments in the future, even if you did one wrong investment, you know. I got scammed many times or did wrong investments, but I learned from it.
It seems like you have learned a lot since being in Dubai. And again, I don't know what your knowledge was when you were back in Germany. I know you were involved in Ecom. Was it the supplement niche? So, and you still have that business today, right? So you don't, in my opinion, speak like someone who's in Ecom. You speak very much to someone who's very well-rounded of many different things. Obviously, wealth is your industry, if you like, which is obviously a good industry to be in. But I guess I would say you have almost like a wealth of knowledge as well, because you just have a good understanding on a lot of things, which obviously allows you to be able to advise people on what to do with their wealth. But where does this knowledge come from? Is it just you've developed it over time? One thing I feel like in Dubai is I feel like I grow very quickly here, not just from a revenue or profit perspective, but on a personal level, my own knowledge and the things that I understand, the people that I talk to, the way in which I communicate, everything levels up very quickly. So do you think that's just your combination of knowledge is just the time that you've been here, obviously, and your own personal attitude towards the things that you do? Or is it anything else that's maybe led to this position that you're in now? This time last year, I was living with my parents at age 27. Today, I live in my dream home in Dubai. If I knew then what I know now, I could have achieved this in 6 months instead of 3 years. Within my Google Ads Ecom Academy, you can learn how to scale e-commerce businesses with Google Ads. These strategies helped me work with known ecom brands like Cheese Geek, as seen on Dragon's Den and invested in by Stephen Bartlett. I also scaled my brother's business, Trope Official, to 1.1 million in sales in 12 months, as well as many, many more. The Google Ads Ecom Academy is designed for all levels, beginners, intermediates, and experts who want to learn how to successfully scale e-commerce businesses. If you want to win with Google Ads, see the video description for more details. All right, now back to the podcast.
Yeah, I think Dubai is a good point, and it's definitely shaped me. And that's what I always say. So you shouldn't move to Dubai just because of taxes or something. Yeah. It's because of the person you become, So 150 years ago, you want to be rich, what do? You take a boat and drive to the US, Everything else is not real, You need to drive to the US with a boat and get rich, And nowadays, it's the same here. Like, where is every person going? To Dubai, So you're serious about getting rich. You want to have the best network around you, the best circle you want to develop. You move to Dubai. It's very easy, and you need to level up here because it's not a place to just hang out a little bit and to enjoy, and it's so nice, Everybody comes here to build something, and these are the aspirations of the government. The government said, if you are not willing to work hard, you're not welcome here, So it's this self-made hustle vibe, the same like the US 150 years ago when everybody just immigrated with a boat to build a new life, a better life, which means a lot of new ideas are here mixing here, new ideas, a lot of ambitions, a lot of visions, and it's all mixing here in Dubai. And that's why I love the city, because now we are sitting here together. We are people from different countries with a different background, but everybody just connects here to build something. Everybody is on one path, and this is only the path to the top, basically. And everybody has this vision to some degree to build a family, to build a business, to build a community, to build a good life. And all this other nonsense is basically cut out. And I think this is most important to immerse in a new world, basically. So I decided in the past, I need to leave Germany. And in best case, I never come back. Why? Because otherwise, when I come back, I'm back in my old mindset, in this old habits, this old thoughts. And I always felt this death by 1,000 cuts, I need to do this, now I have this distraction, and you can't even develop. And now here you are in a new world. You start from zero. When I arrived here, I didn't know anybody, not one person. The first months here I was completely alone, and I didn't needed somebody from my old surrounding. So I thought I will build now a new circle, a new environment. And this is the easiest way to just reprogram you and to just build a new life. And that's why I always love this idea to move. Maybe Dubai is not even the best place in 20 years for you, but it's the best starting point. Because right now, yes, maybe Saudi Arabia, Oman and everything is developing, but most people are just not moving there in step one. Dubai is the entry point, and you don't need to adapt that much because very easy to find people even from your country if you want so to build the same community. but you can really focus on rethinking. And I think when you travel and go to a new place, you can just rethink your whole life basically and the whole world. And in the first years when you're just in this like business scaling mode, at least at this time, I didn't have many other thoughts. I didn't care about politics, about whatever happens in the world. I thought about I need to get rich.
Yeah.
But once you reach this point, and this was for me 3 years ago. Yeah, 3 years ago, I thought, okay, now in theory, I have enough money. Last year, I thought maybe I could now just go to pension basically and just not work. So now I have time and like space of mind to also think about other topics, maybe, which are not just only business related. And I think it's all connected to some degree. So I think just making more money and moving to Dubai and building a new surrounding gives you automatically the possibility to just develop. And you have no other choice anyways than to develop, especially 100%. Here.
I completely agree. I think you touched on a lot of perspectives that I share. I moved to Dubai. I knew a few people. Fortunately, I moved out here with my partner. I live with her, and that was very nice. It was our first time actually moving in together, so that was a step, but everything worked out perfectly. Very, very happy here. And same as you, I almost felt like I had the ability to, I don't want to say reborn, but you can reinvent the person of you that everyone thinks they know, So I came out here, I was very focused. I thought, you know what, I really enjoy talking to people. I've always wanted to build a podcast. What better place to do it? Started that. I've been very focused on business, the same as yourself. And I feel like if you're hard working out here based on the surroundings that you're in, the abundance that is around you, it's very motivating, and it's almost impossible not to win as long as you just keep on your path, stay laser vision, narrow focus, like you said. Don't get distracted by all the pretty things, which there's a lot of here. Just keep focused on what you're doing and you will get there. And during that process, you'll keep leveling up as a person. And hopefully by the time I've been here for 3 years, I'll be feeling like you're feeling right now, because I already feel it after 13, 14 months here. So I can only imagine another, year and a half, how I will feel then, and I don't see myself being anywhere else but here. It's like you say, the USA was in like the 90s, the land of opportunity, there's so much opportunity here in no matter what industry you're in,
Yeah, it's all about the surrounding. Imagine you just stand here on this table and now 5 people try to drag you down. You will be dragged down. There's no other possibility. I just imagined I would start a podcast when I was 16 living in my village in Germany, now you are the new influencer, like everybody's just hating on you. And this is a city here where nobody is hating, everybody wants you to succeed. There's no other way. And the surroundings, everything. So now again, you stand on this table and everybody is dragging you up. It's very easy to level up just because of the surrounding. And I mean, where do you meet so many? Yes, of course, you meet also bad people and scammers, like in every capitalistic environment. But you also meet this 50% who are just on another level successful. And they are mostly self-made. There are not many people that I know here who inherited something. Most of them are self-made. And that's why it's great. And surrounding is everything. Yes.
Yeah, really, really important. I agree. So we touched on quite a lot there then. We spoke not only about company structure, went off onto CBDC, central bank, digital currencies, which you just said, ignore for now, it doesn't matter. Everyone's still spending dollars, which I think makes sense. We spoke a little bit about how you might reinvest wealth when you're here, and obviously why Dubai is an opportunity. Is there any other advice you think you would give like e-commerce business owners? And again, I know you serve other people, but what advice would you give to business owners? What are some common things that you see people potentially struggle with when they book those calls with you? What sort of problems are they facing? And apart from working with you directly, like what advice do you typically tend to give those people when they book a call with you?
Number one advice, 90% of all e-commerce influencers that you watch are broke. So their advice is not good. And most successful e-commerce guys are actually not on social media flexing, because everybody of them who makes the real money, the people that I know who make 100 million, 200 million, they don't care about some small social media flexing. They're focused on their business. And most successful people that I know in e-commerce, they are nowhere to seen. They want to be anonymous, and I also have non-disclosure agreements with them. They just don't care about this. And most of them build real businesses. And I think this is the most important step to actually make this transition between some online shop, that's how I would call it, to a real business. something that nobody can copy, a real brand with your own manufacturing maybe, to build a real structure. Otherwise, imagine you have a big family and it's all reliant on this dropshipping store, and tomorrow somebody can copy it and just, make you bankrupt. This can't be a business,
So do you see some maybe common similarities between these people who are very, very successful, maybe some of the people that you serve in Ecom? You mentioned about them like just being very focused on what they're doing, scaling up real businesses. Do you see any common similarities between them as people?
Yeah, but I mean, we talk to different people every single day, and mostly the ones who don't have money, they need a lot of time for decisions. So always like let's say the people who don't make much money, they are also not good for us as clients, not because of the money, but because of their mindset. They overthink everything and, maybe I'm not sure, I will think one more week, and then, maybe it's too expensive. Their mindset is completely destroyed. It's not a business mindset. The ones who make good money, they decide in 5 seconds, I need this LLC, okay. I need to fly somewhere, okay. It's like boom, fast.
Speed.
And that's the first thing. They make quick decisions. And like I said, they are just laser beam focused. They don't have many distractions.
Yeah.
That's this most important.
I think I'd like to quote a mutual friend of ours, Defino. He said, money moves fast, and to catch the money, you got to be moving quickly. And I think that comes back to what you're saying about people with money. It's decision making, like time costs money, right? So being quick to act, do what you need to do, and get everything done in an efficient manner.
That's right.
There we go. Well, maybe that's a good note to end on. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast, Samuel. Where can people find you, and where can they learn more about wealth consulting?
Yeah, so when they're here in Dubai, they can find us at the Emirates Towers, the Wall Street of Dubai, our office, where they can visit us, especially our clients, of course. And if not, they can just go to our YouTube channels. I have one vlog channel that I need to real-life, Samuel Aziz Bubaus. Most active is our wealth consulting channel, our website, wealthconsulting.com. And for the people where it's interesting to work with us, let's do it.
Yeah. I'll drop a link in the YouTube video with all of your social channels and also a link to your website. And if need be, people can reach out to you there. Thank you again for coming on, brother. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.